All right, welcome back to another episode of your platform podcast. My guest today, I'm super excited to have on. I came across them through Podmatch. I want to give them a quick shout out because I think what they're doing over there is awesome. But it's David Albin. I had to do some research on you, David, and I was really inspired by your story, which I'm really excited to go into and hear from you, because you can only gather so much through what you read online, right? And you follow. Before we jump into the content and what we're going to go ahead and share with the listeners here today, do you mind, David, just give me a brief introduction as to who you are and what exactly it is that you do, specifically with the Firewalk Adventures?
Yeah, sure. So Firewalk Adventures came to be in 2014. I had been working for Tony Robbins for just shy of 20 years. I was in charge of all his firewalks for many years. And literally, my phone rang and it was Google. And they called me in 14 and said, "Hey, are you the Dave Albin that does all the firewalks for Tony Robbins?" And I'm like, "Yeah, why? What's up?" And they said, "Well, if you're not under any contractual obligation or non-compete, we'd like to talk to you about hiring you." So, people get called by Google every day, right? And so I'm like, yeah, homeboy's a free agent. What you got?
Yeah.
And so the next thing I know, I'm contracted to go to Google and put on an event for them. And that's really when Firewalk Productions was born, 2014. After Google, I went back to Google again. Next thing I know, organically, I'm at NASA.
Right.
Then Notre Dame, and then Virginia Tech, and then Remax, and Heineken, and the EO organization, and the YMCA. It just took off. And so that all happened back in 2014, and no pun intended, but we've been going hot and heavy ever since.
Yeah, Dave, quickly, because I'm not sure, obviously, Tony is big in the life coach space and everything that he does, but I don't know if my listeners, because again, being so new with my episodes, I don't know if they necessarily know what a firewalk is. Could you briefly go through that, please?
Yeah, sure. So what's really cool about the Firewalk experience is that it's 1,000 years old. Obviously, Tony Robbins found out about it and he went, okay, this is a life-changing experience. This is a life-saving experience. So he took some risk and he brought it into his seminars way back in the early 90s. But the act itself, Paul, has been around, again, as I said, 1,000 years. If you go look at the Tahitians, it's culturally, it's been over there. The people of India, my gosh, they're really into it because they use it as a rite of passage. Mm-hmm. We've kind of lost sight of rite of passage in America, unfortunately. But in India, before a boy becomes a man by firewalking, a girl becomes a woman by firewalking. When a baby's born, they'll do a ceremonial firewalk where the mother will hold the child and carry the baby over the fire. And so, again, it's to them, it's an everyday thing, right?
Sure.
They're doing it all the time. And that includes the Polynesians, the Hawaiians, the people of Portugal, the Spaniards, the Indo-Europeans. If we go back a couple of hundred years, the Indo-Europeans, before the warriors would go into battle, the women would build the fire that night. They would prep everything for the warriors, and then they would all do a firewalk before they went into battle the following day. So it's a ritual, man. It's a very spiritual connection. And at the end of the day, it's pretty damn scary.
Yeah, I looked at it. I was watching a YouTube video earlier today because I wanted to prepare for, our conversation.
Yeah.
And I was getting anxiety watching people walk through the fire. It's and I kind of I'm hoping to hear what the how something like this started and what it means to you as to why you started and putting people through this. Because I think in my research, you guys broke a record in 2005, putting, 12,000 or so people through a firewalk?
Yeah, London, 2005.
Yeah. What does that mean to you, and what kind of experiences are people getting from this?
Well, I think it's pretty easy to understand, especially if you're at the level of a business owner and an entrepreneur, a CEO, sure, a president of a company. At some point in your personal development, you're going to learn that what doesn't challenge you doesn't change you. All right. So you don't become a Navy SEAL by sitting your happy ass in a seat in a classroom somewhere. Right. you become a SEAL when they take you out at 3:00 in the morning in the Pacific Ocean off the coast of San Onofre, tell you about 9 different types of killer sharks in the water, and then throw your ass overboard and let you sit there for several hours, right? And so fear really is the driving force within all of us, right? And we either learn to deal with it or it deals with us. You can't get around it. Everybody has to deal with it, right? So what's the acronym? What's it mean to you? Is it face everything and rise, or forget everything and run? And so it comes down to that. And firewalking in and of itself is literally one of the most phenomenal, life-changing experiences on earth. It's not like jumping out of a plane or bungee jumping or surfing or, some of the other things out there that we can do that are somewhat challenging. Because when it's your turn and you're standing there and you're looking down and you're looking at those coals and they're glowing bright red, and there's probably a wheelbarrow there full of coals, how do you, like for me, how do you walk several thousand people?
Right.
Well, you start off with a big ass fire.
Yeah.
And you burn it all day, man. You literally, and you're throwing cord after cord of hardwood, seasoned hardwood, hickory, locust, whatever you can get. And then it burns all day. And then at the end, it renders. And so you got this big, giant, beautiful pile of coals, Paul. And so basically what you do is you load those coals in a wheelbarrow with a shovel. Then you put a wheelbarrow in between 2 lanes of sod, of grass. And a fire lane's about 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. If you just take a flathead shovel, man, you sprinkle those coals on top of that grass, you pat them down, boom, and that's what you walk on.
Are there different levels of this?
Oh yeah. There's definitely different levels. Like most things, right? There's definitely different levels. What I do for beginners, right? When I get a corporation that calls me and they hire me and we come in, that's how I do it. I sprinkle those coals on that grass, I pat them down, and then they walk on top of those coals. Notice the word I use, on top of. There are fire walks where you're walking in the coals, which is a completely different level. In fact, on my website, there's a picture of a young girl. She's probably 18, 19. She's carrying 2 newborns, 2 babies. And they dug a pit. It's kind of concave. And the coals are that thick. Standing around the outside is her friends and family. And they're all dressed in beautiful silk pastel colors. It's beautiful. And you can tell it's a ceremony. Yeah. And they're throwing flowers into the fire as she's walking. It looks like she's got a flower in her mouth. And that firewalk is probably 6 foot wide. And it's 30 feet long. But she's walking in the coals, not on top of them, to give you the distinction between the two. And she's carrying 2 newborns. And if she was to drop one of those babies, the baby won't make it.
Oh God!
You can't get to the child fast enough; it'll have 3rd-degree burns.
Right.
So there again, that's a ceremonial. It's a celebration of life.
Sure.
And again, it's a rite of passage. So there's definitely levels up there of firewalking that are pretty extraordinary for sure.
Dave, you've guided countless individuals across the coals. I'm assuming doing it since 2014, and I'm assuming you probably did it previous to that because you were one of Tony's captains, correct?
Yes.
So, could you share any profound insights or anything that you've gained, any wisdom that you've gained about the resilience and on how anyone can break past fear, or specifically human resilience when and fear and the firewalking experience that they go through?
Well, let's start with my own. So I firewalked myself. My first event was a Tony event in 1995. And when my buddy called me and asked me to go, I said, sure. Well, later he called me back and said, I took care of the tickets. And he was giving me information. And before he got off the phone, he goes, oh, by the way, we're going to be doing a firewalk. And I didn't say anything out loud, but I'm thinking, hell no. And you know what's funny about that, Paul, is I didn't even know what a firewalk was. What does that mean?
Right.
I'd never heard the term, but the word fire and walk in the same sentence, my brain said, no, I'm making all decisions at that point in my life based on fear. So I'm just kind of being subservient to my buddy, right? I'm going, yeah, Dan, sure, sounds great. But I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Well, I'll cut the story short, man. The bottom line, you get there's 3,000 people. Tony's on stage for 10 hours. He gets you ready for it. And after we got there at 2 PM. Next thing I know, it's after midnight. And Tony goes, take your shoes off. And I'm like, no. I'm not doing this. You're not tricking me. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah.
The problem I had is my buddy standing next to me. Guess what he's doing?
He took
taking his shoes off. And I got 3,000 other people taking their damn shoes off. So now, what am I going to do? Not take my shoes off?
Mm-hmm.
Because, well, if I don't, everybody's going to go, hey, look at that guy over there. You know, he's a chicken shit, right?
Right.
So I'm in that space where, oh, by the way, it gets worse. Before he takes you out in this big parking lot where the Firewalk is, again, you got 3,000 people, he gets everybody to start clapping and chanting. So now you got 3,000 people going, yes, 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 walking outside. Well, it gets worse because when he gets you out there, he's got African drummers.
And
dun, 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 dun. And I'm thinking, you know, I'm negotiating.
Right.
The moment he said, take your shoes off, I'm like, oh, say, all right. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take my shoes off. When I get out there, 3,000 people, I'm going to lose my buddy. Right? It'll be easy to do. And then I'm just going to go in the back and I'm going to hide out.
Right.
Which is what I had done with other things in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did that. Then I'm hiding in the back. Well, Tony Robbins knows the Firewalk is one of the most life-changing experiences on earth, period, bar none. If there's something more life-changing, show it to me. It's not out there.
Right.
He also knows if you miss out, you're going to miss the paradigm shift. He also knows there's people like me, and he knows where we are. So what's he do? He trains people to come find you. So I'm out there thinking I got it all figured out, Paul, and here, next thing I know, here comes this dude out of nowhere. And he's like walking right at me. And he gets 20 feet from me, and he's looking at me kind of funny, like a dog that hears a funny noise, right? And he goes, hey, man, are you okay? And of course, I'm not okay. And of course, when, you know, what did I do? I lied.
Right.
I said, yeah, I'm good, man. All good here. Move along. Nothing to see here, pal. And all of a sudden, the guy goes, well, hey, man, are you going to walk tonight? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. And I said it with a lot of authority. And he's like, hey, man, it's cool. He goes, no problem. We don't want you to do anything you don't want to do. And I thought, cool, this guy's going to get me out of here. No, he's not. He's setting me up. Because the next question he asked me was, by the way, perfect stranger. I don't know who this guy is to this day. And without him, I'm not here.
Right.
I've walked to 500,000 people,
absolutely.
right? I've walked to 500,000 people in my career.
Wow.
And so without this guy, though, that doesn't happen.
Yeah.
It's like right out of the movie, It's a Wonderful Life, right? With Jimmy Stewart. And so he goes, hey, man, wouldn't you at least like to watch? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Let's do that. You know, why not? This should be interesting. Let's go watch these people burn their feet off. And he goes, hey, man, you can't see anything from way back here. I'm 100 yards away. I can't see anything. I can hear it. Got a big fire going over there. You got the drums going. People are chanting, yes, yes. They're already firewalking. They're screaming when they start and then they finish in the celebration area. That's what they're doing. They're celebrating. Right. They're jumping up and down and screaming. Well, it's a dog and pony show unlike anything you've ever experienced. And so this guy just goes, well, hey, man, listen, just get in line, right? Get in line, and eventually you'll get up there where you can see it. And he's telling me the truth. He's not lying. Mm. So I took the bait. So I got in line. Well, the next thing I know, I got another guy that comes up to me, another stranger number 2. And he whispers in my ear. And he says, he knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. And pew, this guy just disappeared in the night.
Wow.
And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean he knows when you're ready when he says go, do you go? What does that mean?
Right.
So now I'm kind of like, what the hell? And so I'm walking along, and all of a sudden, again, I got 1,000 people in front of me. I can't see it. I can hear it. It's going crazy. But I get to an angle, and I can see it at an angle. And they're doing it. Every race, every creed, every color. And my brain is going, what's wrong with them? Why are they doing this?
Yeah.
We're mammals. We're supposed to run from fire, not walk on it.
Right.
And so I'm mesmerized. I can't take my eyes off it. It's like a car accident when you drive by it, right? You can't take your eyes off it, even though you try. And so I'm staring at it. And the next thing I know, I'm walking along and boom, guess where I am? I'm at the front of the line.
Wow.
And I'm like, how the hell did you get here? And I'm looking down, brother, and I'm telling you, that fire lane's 3 feet wide, 18 feet long. The coals are sitting on the top. They're glowing bright red. The wheelbarrow's there. You can feel the heat coming off. My heart is beating so hard.
Was this on the coals or was this?
I'm standing. I'm like next. I'm in line, right? I'm the next guy to walk in that lane.
Yeah, what I'm asking is though, when you were breaking down the different levels, what level of this was it? The beginner level.
Total beginner level.
Yeah.
But I'm scared to death. My heart's beating so hard, I know it's going to jump out of my chest.
Right.
Well, there's a trainer standing right there. And the trainer goes, eyes up. Like, you idiot.
Yeah.
I'm in a room with Robbins for 10 hours. Guess what he teaches you to do? Keep your eyes up.
Right.
Metaphorically in life. Don't stare at what you fear.
Yeah.
If you stare at the roller coaster long enough, you won't ride it.
Right.
Right? Same thing here. Stare at the coals long enough, you won't want to walk. And I didn't. So now my eyes are up. And he goes, squeeze your fist and say yes. And I went, yes. And he went, stronger. And I went, yes. Well, he could tell. He's a trainer. He's been doing this. Yeah. He knew I was leaving a lot on the table. He knew I wasn't in an absolute peak state.
Right.
So he screamed at me, like God in my face, and said, stronger. And so now I'm pissed, right?
Right.
Threw my hands in the air, screamed as loud as I could, yes. And he goes, go, go, go. Phew. I took off. Remember the guy? He knows when you're ready. When he says go, you go. I did. And so they positioned two guys at the end, and they like lock arms, and they catch you. Hell, good thing they were there. I'd have walked all the way to Albuquerque at that point. So they catch you, and they say, stop, wipe your feet and celebrate.
Yeah. And
so now I'm wiping my feet, and I'm like, I'm not doing this. What? I just walked across coals that were 1,000 degrees. And for a split second, I thought I burned myself.
Mm-hmm.
I felt pain. It was ghost pain.
Yeah.
I looked at my foot, both of them. I go, nope, you don't have any burns. No burn. I just walked on coals that are 1,000 degrees, and I didn't burn myself. And you know what's funny? I don't know how I did it.
Right.
But I did it.
Right.
And I was successful at it.
Yep.
So I'm like, okay, I'm going to take credit for it, right? That's me. That's this guy. I just walked on coals. Oh, it's exhilarating. That's all I can tell you. And in that moment, me and 3,000 other people, I think we're all thinking the same thing. We can do anything.
Right.
Where's the bus? Let's go to Everest, people. But here's where it gets interesting. The next day. See, this is a 4-day event. It's called UPW, Unleash the Power Within, the Firewalk Experience. This is the night, the Firewalk's the night of day one. Now it's day two. We're coming in for day two. There's 3,000 people standing in the foyer, getting ready to go into the venue. And I'm watching them. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Look at how these people are interacting with each other.
Right.
We went from not knowing us the night before to I knew 3,000 people like I'd known them my entire life. There was that connectivity between all of us. There was instant camaraderie between all of us because we had experienced something so spectacular the night before. So the bottom line is we all drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
Right? But I'm watching a man and people are talking and they're laughing and they're hugging and they're crying and they're talking about the Firewalk and they're talking about their lives. And I'm like, my God, this is insanely beautiful to be part of.
Yeah.
And again, I've never been part of anything like this other than a Tony Robbins seminar the next morning after the Firewalk. And so it was pretty intriguing.
I'm curious, Dave, you mentioned something that you were negotiating with yourself throughout this process, right?
Yeah.
Where you were basically trying to figure a way how not to do it. I would assume you're probably this is 1995. So you're probably in your late 30s, early 40s around then.
Yeah.
Or so.
Yeah, late 30s.
What do you think was causing you? I have and maybe you can educate me on this. I'm 34 and I have a tendency of negotiating with myself a lot. A lot of it has to do with waking up early in the morning and working out. I have a hard time doing it, but where were you in your life then for you to kind of, obviously you got invited from your buddy to go to this, but you still could have said no, but there was something that, and you probably said, you know what, why not? Let's do this.
Yeah, because prior to that, so on June 8th of 1988, I woke up grossly addicted to heroin, cocaine, alcohol, cigarettes, chocolate chip cookies. I mean, shit, anything that would, either get me towards some pleasure or get me out of pain, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what happened. Mm-hmm. When I got sober in AA, I had insomnia. So at the same time, when I was up late one night, Tony was on selling an infomercial. He was selling a program called Personal Power.
Yeah.
And so I bought the program and went through it. And, to date this, it came on little white things called cassette tapes. Okay?
Yeah, I remember cassette tapes.
So that's what did it. And then one of my buddy that called me when Tony was coming to town, he's the guy that was my buddy in AA. He came to me one day. He goes, dude, what's going on with you? He goes, you in meetings, you sound amazing. You've got all this knowledge and wisdom, and you're very encouraging and motivating. What's going on? And I said, well, I've been listening to this guy named Tony Robbins. And he goes, hey, man, I know who Tony Robbins is. I bought his book. He goes, but I never read it. And I went, well, how often does that show up in your life?
Right.
Back again, negotiating with yourself.
Right?
Right. Because I teach this. Stop negotiating yourself. You don't get that under control, it'll negotiate everything right out from underneath your feet. If you say you're going to get up in the morning and go to the gym, get your happy ass up and break through that pattern. Because if you don't, you got to understand that's a pattern.
Right.
And you have to break through those patterns. Well, you don't have to. You can just swim in mediocrity if you want to.
Correct.
So, but that's not where an extraordinary life is.
Yeah.
Extraordinary life is sitting right over there on the other side of your comfort zone.
That's right.
Right? So that's just the way that works. So that process is what got me to, the Firewalk. Because again, I'm going to AA, I'm listening to Tony Robbins, I'm studying the personal development industry. So they both collided, in my life at the same time, which is normally not the case.
Yeah.
For most people. And so that launched that whole mindset from that point. So once my buddy called me and he had me at the Firewalk, I was all in. In fact, when I was there at the event, the day later, I met one of Tony's trainers, a guy by the name of Ted Macy. Super, super guy. Him and his wife, Mary, were both trainers for Tony. And I'm talking to this guy, and I said, so Ted, what's it like being in this environment? He goes, are you kidding me? Man, do whatever you can to get yourself in this environment.
Yeah.
He says, matter of fact, he said, you see all these people standing over there with the black shirts with the pink writing on the back? I'm like, yeah, I love the shirt. He goes, dude, they're volunteers. They're just like you. They were here at another event and they filled out a form and they got selected and they're here.
Wow.
He said, so you can do that. When you get home, call Robbins Research. They'll send you an application. Fill it out, send it back. Who knows? And that's what happened. I did. And 9 weeks after I filled it out, I got a letter in the mail. And it said, Dave Albin, congratulations. You've been selected to crew with the Tony Robbins Company. Well, color my ass happy. There I was, man. I mean, next thing I know, I'm there in the environment as a volunteer.
How are you feeling when you get that letter back?
Oh, shit, man. I was like, man, I was so excited. It's like, holy crap. I get to go hang out and be in, because, you see all the people working and you're there as a participant and you're going, man, that would be cool. Look at that guy. Oh, look at this. I mean, there's so many different teams, right? Yeah. You've got the food team and the water team and the fire team and the door greeters and state inducers. And, you've got all these different teams, right? The AV team and production and security. And so I was like, man. And so when you fill it out, the application is pretty extensive. They knew, number one, I had a security background. Number two, they knew I had a military background. And number three, they knew I lived on a farm. Mm-hmm. So they figured me living on a farm, I might know how to use a log splitter or how to split wood or the difference, in hardwoods. And so they put me on the fire team. And that was perfect. That's exactly where I wanted to be. They also put me on the security team. So I started taking care of Tony's celebrities. Mm. Hell, I can do a whole podcast on that alone.
Yeah, that's sweet. Maybe we'll have to bring you back on for that one.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Yeah. So having the opportunity to work really closely with Tony, what are some, that's got to be a super incredible, experience. You've known him for 20 years or so. Yeah. Is there any particular piece of advice that Tony shared with you that kind of shifted your perspective on life and leadership?
Well, if I chunk it down, you learn so many things. I think that the biggest part was it's all about state management.
Yeah.
And that includes not negotiating with yourself.
Yeah.
Control your state. Because, you can't really, you get an idea of what Paul's like when everything's going good in Paul's life.
Of course.
But how does he operate when, it's a shitstorm? And that's what it breaks down. And you know what? I think Victor Frankl left us the best clue for that. He wrote the book, Man's Search for Meaning, right? If you don't know, very quickly, he was in Auschwitz. And so, when he got there, they assassinated his family, and they basically break you down. They take everything from you. You could be standing outside naked. It's cold. You're with several hundred people, and, you haven't been fed in a week. And so they strip you down of everything. Imagine waking up every minute, every second of your life. You don't know if you're the next person to go into the chambers, and you've been tattooed with a number. Every single moment of your life is hell. And Victor figured out something. He said, you can take everything from me except one thing, and that's my attitude. I have to give that up. I have to relinquish that. And so, and the other thing, what he created was a divine purpose, which is huge, because he said, someone's got to tell this story. Someone's got to get out of here, and someone's got to tell this story, and that's what he did. So if you take that state management and you take that divine idea, we can look at our lives and go, we are blessed beyond our wildest imagination. What we're capable of is off the chart. When I do my events, I put a picture of a guy behind me on the screen as I'm doing the pre-frame for the Firewalk and the motivational talk and all that. And I'll talk for 20 minutes with the guy's picture up there, right? And then I'll take it out to the audience and I'll go, hey, who here can tell me where my buddy here is standing? Well, it's pretty obvious. They'll yell out, Mount Everest. And so I'll go, that's correct. And I'll say, let me tell you something about Eric. He's climbed the 7 highest mountains on earth. And he got to the summit of every one of them, including Everest. Put that boy on a mountain bike, you can tear it up. Put him in a kayak, he's quite a kayaker. Put him almost on any river. But here's what you don't know about Eric. He's blind.
Wow.
So I don't want to hear your bullshit.
Wow.
Don't come to me with your crap. I'm not going to buy it. Because here's what I know for a fact. If a man can climb the 7 highest mountains on earth and he's blind, what is it that you've told yourself about you? What story have you made up about why you can't have something in life? I'm too young. I'm too old. I don't have the time. I don't have the money. I don't have the education. I'm a poor white boy from the Bronx. I'm a poor Hispanic boy from the Bronx. I'm a poor black man from the Bronx. Bullshit. Tell yourself what you can do or what you want to do it. And if it's driven by purpose, when the why is big enough, the how shows up.
I love that.
That's just the way our brains work.
Yeah.
And so back to your question, what the things that I've learned from Tony, state management. And why don't people get what they want in life, Paul? Well, my take on that is there's a story we tell ourselves or why we can't have it. Because I believe the 2 most important times in somebody's life is the moment you're born and the moment you figure out why. Right. And that can take a while.
Yeah, for sure.
I spent a good portion of my life I started drinking at 11 and things went downhill from there. And I was 30 some years old before I reached out to AA for help. So I spent a good part of my life trying to kill myself. And so, the next thing I know, I got to AA and I said, guess what? I don't have to do this anymore.
Yeah.
I don't ever, one of the first things I learned in AA is I never have to take another drink as long as I live.
Yeah.
So it's a choice. And then, of course, the personal development industry came in and collided in my life. So it it catapulted me forward.
Yeah. Go ahead, sorry.
Well, I'll just finish with one thing. One of the things I learned in AA that's driven me, and I get asked this on podcasts all the time, what drives you? Well, one of the things that drives me is something I learned in AA. Because, you got the 12 steps that show you how to put your life back together. You got the 12 traditions that show you how to operate within the group. But the preamble is what gets me. Because it said to me, when anyone anywhere reaches out, I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, I'm responsible. And man, I took that to heart.
That's incredible.
When I first got there, man, these men took a hold of me. They knew I was suicidal. I was homicidal. Yeah. They knew I needed a lot of help. And they grabbed me and they loved me and took care of me until I could love and take care of myself.
If you don't mind me asking, during that time, how hard was it to kind of break through that for you?
Alcohol and drugs?
Yeah.
Oh, it's hell. It's absolute. And here's the thing: as I look back, it's almost physically and mentally impossible to do it. Because heroin and cocaine are one thing. Alcohol when you come off alcohol, you can go into delirium tremors and die. You won't die from withdrawals from cocaine or heroin, but alcohol will kill your ass.
Wow.
And so here's what it does. It's, you're hurting bad. The physical and the emotional pain is excruciating. And the drugs and alcohol are screaming at you. Come on, Dave, just have a drink and all that pain will go away. Here, do a little snort of cocaine. I mean, and it's just, it's just bombarding you.
Yeah.
I'd go to several meetings a day.
Wow.
I'd go to 3-4 meetings a day if I could, because I knew I needed to have my happy ass in an AA meeting, or I'd probably be out here looking for a drink or a drug to help curb the pain. And so again, it was the men. I went to an all men's group for a year.
Yeah.
It's called the Stepping Stones Group of Alcoholics Anonymous in Fairfax, Virginia. And they were in Fairfax at the time. They're in Chantilly now. And so, and that group they were kick ass, man. We teasingly say that, they were step Nazis, man.
Sure.
They were in your face about working the steps and getting a sponsor and helping others. And that's what I fell in love with. That's what I became addicted to. I became a really great gatekeeper. Mm-hmm. So when that new guy walked through that door, I was on him, man, and showing them the love that AA showed me when I got there. And then when I got into the personal development industry and I saw how profound the Firewalk experience was and how life-changing it was, I went, man,
yeah,
I want to do that. I want to facilitate that for people.
Right.
And so again, I've had the honor and the privilege to Firewalk to hundreds of thousands of people.
I love that. I love that. We have a couple minutes here. I just want to ask you, with having done over 500,000 people in this Firewalk Adventures experience, what kind of impact are you trying to make in these people's lives?
Well, that just shifted, and I'm glad you asked. I was on a podcast a few months ago, and the question what we had recorded, and then we were just talking sidebar like you and I were before the show, right? And so she said to me, Dave, let me ask you something. Have you ever done a Firewalk for veteran? And I said, you mean specific? And she said, yeah. And I go, no, why? What's going on? And she goes, well, we're very active with veterans, and I've got 200 vets. And I think you can help save their life. You're familiar with the suicide rate, right? I'm like, yeah, it's, like 22 a day, right? She goes, no, that's not even close.
Wow.
That's only if they leave a note. It's more like 40 to 50.
Oof.
And I went, and bro, that cut me, man.
Yeah.
It's like, it hit me like a ton of bricks. Now I'm a vet. Mm-hmm. My father, I was raised by a highly decorated vet in World War II. He was career military. So, Korea, Vietnam, working in the Pentagon. And so I was around the Vietnam age era. So that hurt. Mm-hmm. And so I said, look, I'm all in. I'll help you. I'll do this, but give me a couple of days to go think about this and really put some thought into this. Well, when I went to bed that night, I woke up in the middle of the night. It was clear as a bell. Operation Do No Harm. Literally was ringing in my head. Wow. And then it dawned on me, there's 3 other categories, not just vets. You got first responders. Suicide rate among firefighters and police officers is really high. Single moms. I was born to a single mom, so that I relate to that at a really high level.
Same here.
Right? Right. The other one are abused and neglected children. And so I went, there's 4 categories. So now, let me back up. Corporate America has been really good to me. I've been hired by some of the biggest companies in the world. Very grateful for that. It's been a hell of a ride. But now I can go out to corporate America and say, look, you want to do a Firewalk? How about we do a double whammy for you? So you can also create a Firewalk for, say, single moms. Depending on what kind of company they are, right? Whatever they sell or market,
right.
They could pick a category out of one of those 4 and probably it'll resonate with them. So now we can come and do the Firewalk for that category. They can bring their people. Their people will be part of saving that category's people's lives. It's a nonprofit, so they can make a donation. They get the full benefit of the write-off, and then Operation Do No Harm hires Firewalk Productions. We come in, we do all the work, we do all the heavy lifting, and that company gets all the credit.
Wow!
So it's a total win-win. So Operation Do No Harm is really the direction we're going. In fact, we just did our first event. It was in Modesto, April 12th and 13th.
Awesome. Good stuff. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you, man. It was a big deal.
Yeah. A couple of things too, because I thought it was interesting. You mentioned in our conversation today, that I saw it in videos as well, and then I also looked at it in your bio. Your children did the Firewalk.
They did.
I saw children in the video do it. They, probably as young as 5 or 6.
6, yeah.
6, yeah. 6.
Yeah, I think 5. There was I've done a 5-year-old.
Yeah. I guess let me ask what the experience is for them, and what do you see the effect that it has on them as well, on the children? Because I'm curious.
It's profound, man.
Yeah. Because children. I think of my son. I have two little kids. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old.
Yeah.
My son's 4. My daughter's 2. My son will. I try to. It's funny. We were driving the other day. He has one of those old, like those power trucks, like a Jeep, and he was driving in our yard. Yeah. There was the tiniest spider that was on his windshield, and he paralyzed. He was afraid. Kind of just stopped.
Yeah.
And I had this conversation with somebody the other day, Dave, that I was just like, when it comes to with kids, it's like, how do we teach them to handle it yourself, or do I come in as a dad and take care of it for him? And for me, I want him to kind of do it on his own, right? I want him to kind of overcome that. And he wasn't going to let him sit out there for 2 hours because he did not move, Dave. I'm telling you right now, that little boy did not move.
He was frozen. Sure.
So I'm thinking, and I'm just curious on something like this, walking across fires. If I told my son to do that right now, he'd look at me like I have 10 heads. What's that like?
It's one of the most beautiful experiences. Any child, anyone, somebody like myself that can facilitate to do that. When we were in Modesto, I'll give you a couple stories on that. Again, as you know, my bio says my daughter was 6 years old the first time she walked. My son was 9. I've walked hundreds, maybe thousands of kids. In Modesto, we had a young man there. He was 8, and he did not want to do it. He didn't want to do it. And then the mom came up to me and she said, "He wants to ask you a question." I said, "Well, let him come over and let him talk to me in private." So I had a brief conversation with him, and I said, "Mommy wants to do it. Can I walk him across?" And she said, "Sure." I took him out. I walked him. And then at the end of the night, I do a closing thing that's a very powerful process where I get everybody's heart to beat at the same time. Don't have time to explain it here. Just know that's what I do. And so when I was saying goodbye and goodnight, next thing I know, he's pulling on my shirt. And I turned around, and there he was, and I kneeled down to him, and I've got it's recorded. I was wearing a live mic, and so what I said to him, they got recorded. I'll send you a copy of that in an email so that you can hear what was said there. The other thing I do with that experience, Paul, is I do the board break. Right, so I bring the martial art into it. So I have them write something on front of the board they want to move towards, something they want to move away from on the back. I have them write anybody's name on the board that they're in conflict with. So forgiveness or reconciliation is part of that relationship. It's going to end tonight. You're going to give it to the fire. And then to create the rite of passage, I have them write anybody's name on the board that they've lost. So now it's really emotional, powerful. So we go outside, they break the board, and then they circle back, and then they not only, obviously they do the firewalk, and then they get to throw the board into the fire. You give me a 7, 8-year-old kid that goes through an experience like that, they're never going to forget that.
Right.
Now you've been planted. This is self-worth.
Yeah.
This is self-confidence. This is self-belief. Because the bottom line is we pretty much all say the same thing, adults or kids. If I can walk on fire and not hurt myself and burn myself, what else can I do?
Right.
Right. So that part takes over. So, yeah. And I get asked all the time, "Hey, Dave, can kids come?" You better believe they can.
That's awesome.
And as you said, I think you saw one of the videos where we're probably walking some kids. I think you saw EO. I think we were with EO South Florida, the entrepreneurs.
Yeah, that was the South Florida one. Yep.
South Florida. Yeah. Yeah. So we walk kids all the time. And then, we hear the stories later. I have a dear friend of mine. Her kids walked, and they actually did the glass walk the first time. And the little boy, when he got ready to go ride a bike, he was struggling. And she said to him, she bent down and kneeled down, and she said, "You walked on glass. If you can walk on glass, you can ride this bicycle." And she said his whole personality went, like, that's true. Next thing you know, she said he was riding that bike around the pool, man, and it was a beautiful thing to watch.
That's awesome.
And kids need that today. Look,
yeah, for sure.
We're not doing this.
No.
The whole school system has failed.
Yeah.
We've gone. When I was a kid, we were number one in the world in education, and now we're 40th.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
So don't give me your crap.
Right.
The Board of Education. You're not doing your job, especially now when you want to teach them all this other crap.
Exactly.
No.
Exactly.
We don't teach self-worth in school. When we change that, this country will change with it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So we touched on a lot of things, and Dave, one for this being my first pod match episode. I was very nervous to do it. So, I appreciate the opportunity to come on and do this. So we touched on your business in the Firewalk Adventures. We talked about kind of not negotiating with yourself and the compound effect that it has when you not negotiate, and then the compound effect that it has when you do negotiate with yourself. And we talked about kind of the future of the Firewalk Adventures and what you're doing here now with veterans. I really enjoyed this conversation, Dave. This was good, and I think my listeners would certainly take some real value in what you're saying. But before we let you go, is there anything else that I missed, or anything that you want to share with the listeners here today that you want them to know about Dave Albin and Firewalk Adventures?
Well, they can go to our website and get all that. That's firewalkadventures.com. It's all there. The academy's there. If you want to get a hold of us, I'm very accessible, all that. And that's over there. But what I'd like to share in terms of giving your listeners some more value is there's a guy out there that's one of my mentors, and I don't even know that he knows this. So, and maybe if he hears a podcast someday, he'll know. I'm following a guy out there by the name of Gary Brecka. And Gary Brecka was a human biologist, and he knows exactly how this thing works. And he was also a mortality expert, right? So he worked for the insurance company. So let's say that Paul came in to get a $50 million life insurance policy. The insurance company say, "Okay, Paul, here, give us a sample of your blood, and we'll get back to you on the policy." Well, they'd send that blood off to Gary, and Gary would come back and evaluate it, and he'd say, "Paul's going to die in February of 2031. He's that accurate.
Wow.
Well, the problem is that they tied his hands. They wouldn't let him go back and tell that person, "Hey, if you make some changes here, you can prolong your life." So one day he woke up and said, "I'm not doing this anymore. I'm leaving." And so that's my gift to your audience. Go Google Gary Brecka and let him teach you all the things that you can do that are all free.
Wow.
It's free. So let me tell you, my regimen, right? I get up in the morning. What's the first thing I do? And every one of us should do the same thing. Make your bed. Period. Just make your bed and trust me. Because even if you go and have a bad day, at least you come home to a bed that's made. Right? Second thing I do is I go out when the sun's coming up and I expose my upper torso to the sunlight. I do that for about 9 minutes. And that infuses my body with vitamin D. That sunlight's very, very good for you. There's no ultraviolet rays, so you won't get sunburned. And then I do, and this is the kicker, you want to add some years and quality of your life, do this right here and do it every day. Do diaphragmatic breathing. So I take 30 breaths that looks like this. And man, it hurts because your lungs are going to town.
Yeah.
You do 30 breaths. And then at the end, you take a nice deep breath in, exhale, and then another nice deep breath, and then you hold it. And then when you can't hold it anymore, you exhale. Do 3 sets, total of 90. 90 breaths, 3 sets, hold your breath 3 times. You're going to put so much oxygen into your body that your body is going to operate the way it's supposed to.
I love that.
It's incredible. Third thing I do is I go on the other side of my cabin, which is right over there, and I put my bare feet on the grass. Another 9 minutes. It's called earthing. It's another word for it. It's called grounding. You have to. Your body will function at a high optimum level. The planet is designed to pull the negative ions out of your body. There's a positive and a negative force here. That's why there's the magnetic poles on the planet. Right. So you can Google it. again, I do this I do it every day.
You do it, is it morning, or is it you just make sure you do it every day?
I try to do it all. I get it all out in the morning. I'll get up, the sun's coming up, boom, it's early. By 8:00, all my stuff's done.
Right.
Then I come in, I do some meditations, I do some sound therapy. I read, here's one for your readers too, or in your audience. Read 10 pages in a good book every day. You want to change your life? You want to propel yourself forward? Start reading 10 pages in a good book every single day. What's 10 times 365? 3,650 pages.
Yep.
That's 10 really good books in a year.
Wow.
You think if you read 10 really good, personal development, inspiring, motivating type books in a year, you think it's going to influence your life? What?
100%.
Of course it's going to.
100%.
And here's the kicker. Here's the next one. And again, this is all free. Well, other than buying the books. I do a really hot shower. Then at the end, I turn the hot water off. I set a timer for 3 minutes. I live in the Appalachian Mountains in the upper part of the state of North Carolina. My cabin's at 3,500 feet. The temperature of the water coming into my house is 57 degrees. So I stand there for 3 minutes in a cold shower.
Love that.
And you can go do your own research about that.
I love that.
There's more peer reviews about this. There's data everywhere that it burns inflammation. It's incredible for you.
That's so amazing that you say that. And we'll wrap up with this. But when I was working out and I still work out, I'm not as consistent as I need to be. And I need to be, I know this, but I would do the same thing. After I'm done with my workout, I would hop in the shower for a hot shower, which I love a hot shower for, 7-8 minutes, and then instantly turn it to cold. And the effect that it had on my actual just presence, my actual life. I mean, I was at, I think, the most peak performance in everything that I was doing. Funny that you mentioned life insurance. I actually do sell insurance. That's what I do for a living. And I found that when I did that, everything was on point, Dave. So I appreciate you sharing that with my listeners. So
you're oxygenating your body at a really high level, all right? Yeah. So, and here's something that all your listeners need to know. Disease does not exist where oxygen is present. Let me say that a little louder for the folks in the back. Disease does not exist where oxygen is present. Now, what Gary Brecka will tell you is, if you start breathing diaphragmatically like that, and you ground yourself, and you do cold water showers, you can add about 7 years to your life.
Let's go. I love that. Let's go.
Let's go, brother. Yeah, man.
Dave, this was a lot of fun, man. I really appreciate your time, and I hope to have you on again.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy
to definitely connect more, and I'm hoping with the guests that I have on, and it's not just to provide value to the listeners, but this is for me too.
Sure.
I'm finding a way to get free master classes about pretty much everything now, which is pretty sweet. And I hope that it energizes the guests that I have on and brings value to them too. So, David, Albin, thank you very much. And I look forward to staying connected soon, man.
Thanks, Paul.
Take care.